The words I'd like to share in this moment are from the great poet David Whyte, who says this: I awoke this morning in the gold light, turning this way and that, thinking for a moment it was one day like any other. But the veil had gone from my darkest and darkened heart, and I thought it must have been the quiet of candlelight that filled my room. It must have been the first easy rhythm with which I breathed myself to sleep. Must have been the prayer I said, speaking to the otherness of the night, and I thought, this is the good day, the day you could meet your love. This is the black day, someone closest to you could die. This is the day you realize how easily the thread is broken between this world and the next. And I found myself sitting up in the quiet pathway of light. The tawny, close-grained cedar burning around me like fire, and all the angels of this housely heaven ascending through the first roof of light the sun has made. This is the bright home in which I live. This is where I ask my friends to come. This is where I want to love all the things it has taken me so long to learn to love. This is the temple of my adult aloneness, and I belong to that aloneness as I belong to my life. There is no house like the house of belonging. So I want you to imagine me at age 12. I'm standing very awkwardly and very uncomfortably with a bunch of other girls along the gymnasium in my middle school. Most of them are chatting. I am not. It's my first school dance ever. I've been in 8th grade after a couple of months after being in school in Spain for several years. I haven't spoken English for at least 2.5 years, and every time I speak English, which actually I speak fluently, but it sounds really formal and not like the kind of English you want your 8th grade friend to speak. To make matters worse, I've skipped a grade, so I'm a year younger than everybody else. Are you surprised to hear that I wasn't at the top of the list of the cool girls? You're not, are you? So at the opposite side of the gym, at a distance that feels like about 147,000 miles away, are all the boys. They are all lined up on the other side. Some of you might be old enough to remember these horrible experiences we subjected ourselves to back in the day, but anyway. It's pretty dark in the gym, so I can't really tell. But it seems to me that the boys are not chatting as animatedly as the girls on my side were. I admired those girls so much. They just didn't seem to care about how weird this whole situation was. To make matters even worse, it's pretty clear to me that the outfit my mother dressed me in is wildly inappropriate. Oh, goody. I imagine some of you have perhaps had the experience of showing up at a, important event being completely wrongly dressed. That was me. I want to disappear. I want the ground to swallow me up. And unfortunately, it doesn't. My prayer in that moment was very single-minded. I did not have high expectations, I'll say that for myself. I did not expect to be picked right away, because at any moment these boys were going to come over and start making their selections. All I wanted was not to be the last person standing against the girls' wall of the gym. I didn't care if there were like only 2 more after me, but I didn't want to be the last one. I'm pretty sure I wasn't, but still, all that fills my mind is that sense of, ah. Now, the truth is, I don't think I was. Like I said, I don't think I was. The truth is, I didn't actually really want to belong to that group of girls who seemed so poised and so happy with that situation. I mean, I thought this whole thing was pretty dumb. I wouldn't have dared tell anybody. I knew I was an outsider. I knew I was one of those people who, for a whole kind of reasons, who didn't belong. So I didn't really want to just belong to that group. I wanted to belong to some group. But what I did want was not to stand out. In my mind and with my experience, it seemed to me that if I could just blend in and not draw attention to myself, that I would feel safe. The rest of it didn't matter. If I could somehow avoid being perceived as being too different, then I would be safe. And so that's what I aspire to. And the truth is, and I look back on it now and I feel sadness for that young girl and for that young woman who felt this way for so many years. I feel sadness for her, and if I could, I would hug her and tell her, you have been so brave. But I held to that belief. If I keep my head down and just don't be anything unique, don't be anything that people notice, it will be okay. Well, I don't know if any of you have tried this, but I tried it for a really long time, and I'm here to tell you it didn't really work. It didn't work at all, but it helped me feel like I was doing everything I could, to hold on. And part of my mind said, if only you knew the rules, if only you understood how this is supposed to, social rules, every situation, church has, coffee hour, everything has its own, at least to me, it has its own sort of rules, and if only I knew the rules, I could follow the rules. The fact is, some of us can't, some of us don't want to. Dear ones, this morning I'm asking us to reflect. As I shared earlier, I'm asking us to reflect on this challenge that we have between the desire to belong, the desire to feel safe, and on the other hand, this desire to be recognized and seen for the individual we are, for the specialness that we have. And if we hold beliefs or convictions or desires that maybe don't fit the mold of what we perceive all of society to be, that maybe we want to speak for those beliefs, for those opinions, and maybe we want to assert the fact that all of us have a right to our opinions and to our own uniqueness. As it happens, and I know I mentioned this earlier, but I'd like to speak more about it. As it happens, we've become less and less willing to be on the side of our uniqueness. We've become less and less willing, especially to speak a truth that might make us unpopular, or even worse, that might make us target of this hate that just seems to be ballooning more and more in the world we live in. I want to speak the name of the authors who did this research, because they did an incredible piece of research. William Chopik, Kim Gatsky, Alejandro Carrillo, Rebecca Weidman, and Jeff Potter. Between the years 2000 and 2020, which is a long period of time, they surveyed 1,400,000 people with the exact same questionnaire. And the question's pretty short, but a series of questions to kind of get at this point. Where do you fall on this spectrum? And over that time period, I could show you the graph. The graph goes down and down and down and down. the willingness, as I say, speak our truth if it somehow is going to appear to offend anybody or to incite any kind of reaction, has gone down and down and down. And at the same time that has gone down, all of the research, at least that I read to try to understand what's happening in the world, all of our research shows that anxiety keeps going up. It keeps going up, especially among young people. Long before the pandemic, which skyrocketed anxiety by 25% in pretty much all demographic segments, long before the pandemic, our young people, since the early 90s, have been reporting higher and higher levels of anxiety. And we can't say, right, we don't know exactly why, although I think most of us can have a pretty good idea, right? Pretty good idea. Both for this anxiety that keeps going up and our willingness to be ourselves that keeps going down. Social media, many believe social media is a big influence on this. Many believe economic pressures. Beloveds, our children and grandchildren are probably not going to do as well as we were led to believe they should, or even as well as we did. Political stresses and global problems that sometimes it's hard to feel that we even have a shot at trying to address them as a global community. Well, all of these pressures are impacting us, and especially impacting our young people. And my message to you this morning is not be more brave and be more unique, or be more cautious and protect yourself and seek to belong. It's not turn in any direction, but my message is this: can we be more intentional about what we choose? I don't know about you, but for me, sometimes, as the young girl who stood against that gymnasium wall, I'll tell you this: if I'd been brought up in a UU church, I probably would have walked across to the boys, and I would have, to the loneliest looking boy, and I would have probably said, "Hi, you look as pathetic as I do." You want to go drink whatever it is they were serving, some revolting punch, no doubt. Right? I would have been motivated by kindness, and I would have been motivated by friendship and by understanding, but I wasn't brought up in a UU congregation. And if I can make a plug, I'm so proud of how we raise our little ones and our children and our youth. But in that moment, I wasn't thinking, I wasn't being intentional. I was just desperately trying to protect myself. And I think some of us are doing that right now. We are just desperate to stop the noise and to find a way of being in this world where we are. For those of us who've never had to face social displacement at that level, who've never had to face the complete lack of privilege, this is particularly difficult. I don't need to tell you, it's an upheaval. But we can be intentional. We can reflect on this. And we can remind ourselves over and over again, our faith tradition was born and grew strong in a period of history of enormous religious violence. During the European religious wars between 1517, at the start of the Protestant Reformation, and the early 18th century, just in the 30 years war alone, roughly 8 million people lost their lives. And this faith tradition, this quirky accepting, pluralistic faith tradition that puts love at the center of everything we do. This faith tradition that puts reason and truth at the center of everything we do. This faith tradition became strong, small but mighty. Our ancestors did that, so we know that we can too, that we can carry on that legacy, that we can make the choice every day for love, the choice for pluralism, the choice for tolerance, the choice for truth. With one another, mostly, first of all, for ourselves and for the world, for the communities we serve with Sunday night dinners or with our donations, for the people we meet along the way. We can make intentional choices. Holding you in my heart. Amen. Ashe, and blessed be.